You've been called quiet your whole life. Maybe at school, maybe at work, maybe even at family gatherings where you should feel at home. People look at you and they make assumptions. They think you're shy. They think you're awkward. They think you don't have anything to say. And the worst part is, you've started to believe them. You've started to wonder if something is wrong with you. If maybe you really are too quiet, too reserved, too distant. But here's what nobody around you understands. You're not quiet. You've never been quiet. You just stop talking around people who make you feel like your voice doesn't belong. Because the same person who barely speaks in a meeting can come home and talk for hours with someone they trust. The same person who sits silently at a party can laugh until their stomach hurts when they're with the right friend. The same person labeled as antisocial can be the loudest, funniest, most expressive human being in the world, just not in front of everyone. And if any of this sounds familiar, if you've ever felt this strange contrast inside yourself, then this video was made for you. Because by the end of it, you're going to understand something about yourself that most people will never figure out. Before we go deeper, if you've ever felt misunderstood for being quiet, do yourself a favor and subscribe. This channel exists for people like you, people who think deeply, feel deeply, and deserve to finally hear the truth about who they really are. Now let's get into it. The first thing you need to unlearn is the idea that being quiet is a personality flaw. It's not. Being quiet is not the same as being shy. It's not the same as being socially awkward. It's not the same as not having anything to say. In fact, the people who talk the least often have the most going on inside their minds. They notice details others miss. They pick up on emotions in the room before anyone else does. They process every word, every glance, every shift in energy. So why do they stay silent? Because they've learned something most people never figure out. They've learned that not every environment deserves their voice. They've learned that words spent in the wrong place are words wasted. They've learned that silence isn't emptiness. Silence is selection. And once you understand this, everything about your behavior starts to make sense. Think about it for a moment. Have you ever been in a conversation where you tried to say something, and the second you opened your mouth, someone interrupted you? And then you waited. You waited for another opening. And when it finally came, you started to speak again. And again, someone cut you off. Maybe they didn't even realize they did it. Maybe they were just excited. But after the third or fourth time, something inside you shifted. You stopped trying. You decided it wasn't worth it. You leaned back. You went quiet. And from the outside, people thought you were just being reserved. But inside, you were exhausted. You were tired of fighting just to be heard. This happens to people like you all the time. And over the years, it starts to leave a mark. You begin to associate speaking with rejection. You begin to associate sharing with being dismissed. So instead of forcing yourself into conversations where you'll be ignored, you choose silence. Not because you're weak, not because you're broken, but because you're protecting yourself. And then there's the exhaustion, the kind of tiredness that hits you after a long conversation that meant absolutely nothing. You know the feeling. Someone talked at you for 30 minutes about things you didn't care about. You nodded. You smiled. You said, yeah, and really, at all the right moments. And when it was finally over, you felt drained. Not because the person was bad, but because the conversation was empty. There was no real exchange. No real connection. Just noise dressed up as communication. People like you can feel the difference between a real conversation and a performance. And once you felt that difference, you can't unfeel it. You start to crave depth. You start to crave meaning. You start to crave the kind of conversations where both people are actually present, where words carry weight, where silence between sentences feels comfortable instead of awkward. And when you can't find that, you'd rather say nothing at all. This is also why you might feel surrounded by people, yet completely alone. You can be in a room full of voices and still feel invisible. You can have dozens of contacts in your phone and still feel like nobody truly knows you. Because being heard isn't about how many people are around you. It's about whether anyone is actually listening. And most people aren't. Most people are just waiting for their turn to talk. They're not interested in understanding you. They're interested in being understood themselves. And once you notice this pattern, it becomes impossible to ignore. That's when the fear creeps in. The fear of being judged. The fear of being misread. The fear that if you really said what was on your mind, people would think you're strange, or too intense, or too much. So you hold back. You give them the safe version of yourself, the polite version, the version that doesn't risk anything. And while you're doing this, a part of you is screaming inside, because you know they're not seeing the real you. They're seeing a placeholder, a shadow, a version of you that exists only to keep the peace. If this is hitting you in a way you didn't expect, take a second right now and leave a comment with the word real, just that one word. Because I want to know how many of you are watching this and recognizing yourself for the first time. And while you're at it, leave a like. It genuinely helps this video reach other people who feel exactly the same way, but think they're alone in it. Now let's keep going, because what comes next is the most important part. Most of the people who are quiet today weren't always quiet. Somewhere along the way, something happened. Maybe you grew up in a home where your voice didn't matter. Maybe you had parents who talked over you, siblings who made fun of you, teachers who told you to sit down and be quiet. Maybe you opened up to someone you trusted, and they used your words against you. Maybe you shared something vulnerable, and it was met with laughter instead of understanding. And little by little, you learned. You learned that speaking comes with risk. You learned that being open invites pain, so you adapted. You built walls. You became selective, not because you wanted to, but because you had to. And here's what's beautiful about this. What looks like a weakness from the outside is actually a survival skill. Your silence is intelligent. Your silence is strategic. Your silence is your way of saying, I'm not going to give the most precious part of myself to people who don't know how to handle it. That's not antisocial. That's wisdom. That's the kind of self-protection that took years to develop. And most people will never understand it. Now here's the part that's going to flip your perspective completely. You don't have a problem talking. You have a filter. Psychologists call it social filtering. And it's something your brain does automatically, often without you even realizing it. Every time you walk into a room, your mind is doing a quick scan. It's reading the energy. It's sensing the people. It's asking questions you don't even hear consciously. Is this safe? Are these people genuine? Will my words be respected here? Is it worth it? And depending on the answers, your brain decides how much of you to reveal. With strangers, the filter is high. The walls are up. You give just enough to be polite, but nothing real. With acquaintances, the filter loosens slightly. You share a little more, but still carefully. But with the right people, the people who've earned your trust, the filter drops completely. The walls come down. And suddenly, you're not quiet anymore. You're alive. You're funny. You're loud. You're full of opinions and stories and energy. You're the version of yourself you've always been underneath, finally allowed to come out and breathe. This is why people who've only seen you in one environment will swear you're a quiet person. And the people who've seen you in another environment will swear you never stop talking. Both are right, because both are seeing different versions of you, depending on whether your filter is up or down. And there's nothing wrong with this. In fact, it's one of the most emotionally intelligent things a person can do. You're not pretending. You're not faking. You're just protecting your real self for the people who actually deserve it. Let me describe some things, and I want you to notice how many of them feel familiar. You walk into a new place, and instead of jumping into conversations, you watch. You observe. You take in how people interact, how they treat each other, how they react to small things. You're not being awkward. You're collecting information. You're trying to understand the dynamics before deciding how much of yourself to show. You hate forced conversations, the kind where everyone is just talking to fill the silence. You'd rather sit there in quiet than participate in something that means nothing. Small talk drains you, not because you can't do it, but because it feels like spending energy with no return. You prefer listening over speaking. There's something almost relaxing about being the quiet one in a group, just absorbing everything, watching the patterns, noticing what people reveal about themselves without realizing it. And often, you learn more in those silent moments than the loudest person in the room learns all night. When you do speak, you mean it. You don't talk just to be heard. You talk when you have something worth saying. And because of that, your words tend to land differently. People remember them. People feel them. Even if you only said one sentence the entire conversation, it might be the sentence that stays with someone. You've also probably noticed something painful. You often get misunderstood. People label you as cold, as distant, as stuck up, as someone who thinks they're better than others. And it hurts, because none of that is true. The truth is you just don't perform connection. You don't fake closeness. You don't pretend to vibe with people you don't actually vibe with. And in a world that rewards surface-level energy, your authenticity gets mistaken for arrogance. But here's the truth that most people will never tell you. You don't owe anyone access to your real self. You don't owe anyone your stories, your opinions, your laughter, your depth. These are gifts. And gifts are meant to be given to people who recognize their value. If someone hasn't shown you that they can hold your truth with care, you're under no obligation to hand it to them. Silence with the wrong people is not coldness. It's discernment. It's you saying, I see you, and I've decided you're not the one. And let this sink in. Not every room deserves your voice. Not every conversation deserves your energy. Not every person deserves access to the version of you that makes your closest friends laugh until they cry. Some people only get the surface. And that's okay. That's not you being fake. That's you being wise. Trying to fit in everywhere will burn you out. Trying to be talkative around people who drain you will leave you empty. Trying to perform a personality you don't actually feel will slowly disconnect you from who you really are. So if you've been forcing yourself to talk more, smile more, engage more, just to be liked, please hear this. You don't have to. The world doesn't need another version of you that's more palatable. The world needs the real you. And the real you only comes out when you feel safe. So if you've made it this far in the video, here's what I want you to remember. You are not too quiet. You are not too reserved. You are not too closed off. You are not broken. You are not strange. You are not wrong. You're just someone who hasn't given the world full access yet. And that's not a flaw. That's a boundary. That's a form of self-respect that most people will never develop. The people who matter will earn their way in. They'll show you, through patience and consistency, that they're worth the effort. And when they do, you'll let them see the version of you that nobody else gets. The loud one, the funny one, the deep one, the one who never shuts up once she feels safe, the one who has so much to say, she could talk for hours. That version of you exists. She's not gone. She's not hiding because she's broken. She's hiding because she's waiting for the right room, the right people, the right moment. And when it comes, you'll know. Because you won't have to force a single word. If this video made you feel seen, even for a moment, do me a small favor. Leave a comment telling me what hit you the hardest. I read them all, and your words help others who feel exactly the same way realize they're not alone. And if you haven't already, leave a like on this video so it can reach more people who need to hear this tonight. There's a video showing up on your screen right now that goes even deeper into the way your mind protects you. And I think it's the perfect next step for what you just felt. Click on it, and let's keep going together.